November 2013 marks 50 years since President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. It was a life-changing moment in American history, just like 9/11, when people remembered where they were and what they were doing when they found out. Well, before he became president, he was a Democratic congressman, then senator from Massachusetts. And here to talk about JFK's connection to Western Mass, more specifically Springfield, is Professor Thomas Carty, chair of the Social Sciences Department at Springfield College. Now, also, you've written a couple of books about, well, just in general, you've written a couple of books, but more specifically one about JFK being the first Catholic president of the United States. So you are the pro about JFK. Talk to us about the connection that he has, not just to Springfield, but to Springfield College. What did he do special at the college?
Well, thank you, Liz, for that question. He came to Springfield College in 1956, which was very exciting. John Kennedy at that time was a senator from Massachusetts, so locally he was well known, not nationally known yet. And he gave a commencement speech, and his message was stay in Massachusetts. So I think he was very inspiring to people in Massachusetts and in Springfield. And then, of course, he would go on to this illustrious career as president, and then sadly, as he was, a lot of people think, martyred in a sense for the country as in the assassination.
What were some of the highlights of that commencement speech? And then also, he got a special something from Springfield College.
Right.
What was that?
Springfield College honored him with an honorary degree, honorary law degree, and many famous Americans have been honored since then. Martin Luther King in the 1960s received gave a commencement speech, received an honorary degree. John Kerry, another senator from Massachusetts, and he received the honorary doctorate, and he gave the speech, and his message there was stay in Massachusetts, give back to Massachusetts, and I think it was a speech that Springfield College is proud of, that recognizing his ability early on.
Do you think that, because that was just a couple of years before he became elected to the presidency of the United States, do you think he kind of had an inkling of that's where he wanted to go?
Yes. Yeah, John Kennedy is an interesting story. His father, of course, is a very ambitious man, as you know. He originally wanted his oldest son, Joe Jr. Kennedy, to be president, but Joe Jr. died in World War II. So there was a lot of pressure on John Kennedy the younger, who had actually been a very sickly boy, had been a boy that was more of a bookworm than an athlete and a real leader. And John Kennedy Jr. was thrust into this role or John Kennedy, the second son, was thrust into this role of the heir apparent for the family. And so he became the one who was expected to achieve. And in that year, 1956, after speaking at Springfield College, that summer he was considered for the vice presidency. And he wasn't selected, but he was considered. And then, of course, 1960, a few years later, he was elected president, the first Catholic president, which I wrote about in my book.
Yes. Now, just a couple of days before the presidential election, he comes to Springfield, speaks on Springfield City Hall steps. What does he say?
He wanted to thank the people of Springfield because this was a homecoming of sorts. He had been across the country. He had spoken to many different kinds of people. Just the other day in the newspaper, it talked about how he had been to West Virginia and met the coal miners. He had been to all different corners of the United States. And now he was coming home to the folks who were there when he was a congressman and senator, kind of showing his loyalty to his base. And he mentions one of Springfield's proud politicians, Congressman Ed Boland, in that speech. And so that's a nice little touch of recognizing Springfield and returning before his infamous or his famous election as president.
And then, of course, just a couple of years later, he is assassinated in November. And this month, we mark the 50th anniversary of that. And it's a very powerful moment in anybody's life who was alive at that time. And even if you weren't alive, like I wasn't alive, it's still powerful for me, the memories brought down that my dad even told me. I came home from school, my mom was crying, and it's just been it's been passed down from generation to generation. Talk about some of the theories that have gone into his assassination.
Sure. First, as you said earlier, I think this was a national experience for Americans. I think similar, as you said earlier, to September 11th. It was something where everybody remembers where they were. It was a sense of national mourning. It was televised, so everybody had a similar connection to it. And then, of course, in Massachusetts, people had a closer connection to it. I remember growing up in my house, my grandfather had met John Kennedy, and there were pictures on the wall. There are all these books about Kennedy, and he was so well known locally and, of course, nationally. And so I think this is why, part of the reason why, that people have thought it shouldn't have happened, it couldn't have happened in a regular way. There must have been some conspiracy behind it. So there are theories that perhaps the Soviet Union was behind it during the Cold War. It was the arch enemy of the United States. Kennedy, of course, had authorized the CIA to try to overthrow Castro's government in Cuba. So there's theories that this was a revenge by Fidel Castro in Cuba. There's several theories, and I think none of them have been really supported by most historians, but I think what it shows us is how beloved Kennedy was and how there was a sense that there must be a greater meaning to it. Because especially here in Massachusetts, some people think the country might have gone in a different path if Kennedy had lived.
Correct. Well, thank you so much for coming on board and talking to us about this.
And my pleasure. Thank you for your questions.